Atkinson with John Gibbons and Rob Gutmann, talking about Wataru Endo to Liverpool. He may well be on a plane from Stuttgart into Liverpool. He's Stuttgart captain and Japanese captain as well, but he is not the name or the type of name we were expecting a week ago, 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago at the start of the window. Let's get into all of that now as we go all the way through. This is a video. We're also putting out as a live. There'll be loads of fantastic stuff for you tomorrow on the Anfield Wrap, getting as much insight into this footballer as we can from people who've watched him regularly, maybe even a couple of people who've worked with him and so on and so forth. Do subscribe if you have the opportunity to do so and support everything we do here at the Anfield Wrap. But let's start off. Let's have your journey, your personal journey, Rob, on Wataru Endo. As it broke, it would be fair to say that you were an absolute skeptic.
Well, the evening started in the pub with talk of Amrabat, and he was my lowest bar, but I was excited by that low bar because I thought an Amrabat and a young guy, like maybe one of the other young guys we like Thuram or Gravenberch, who else? Checked Ducore, and I think, yeah, do you know what? That's fine. And you and I did some gutter, was it yesterday, Neil? And you were banging the drum. I correctly, I think, for the idea for what's the word? Qualified mediocrity, I'm going to say. You say a certain level of blandness wouldn't go amiss alongside a prospect. I think that's the balance we all saw. So if someone said to me, Amrabat and Ducore, 90 million snots and no mistake, done deal. I'd have traded on that. But Palhinha at 28, Premier League, he's done the bits. You could have put him in the mix. Really, really had a good season for Fulham. It's very clear to see what level of player we'll be getting. Also exciting in inverted commas. And from nowhere, we get a footballer that not a single Liverpool supporter in the entire universe, bar about 18 people, had heard of. I'm just going to guesstimate roughly. That doesn't make the lad a bad player. And we're on a fast learning curve. He's the Japan captain. He's the captain of Stuttgart. So he's very captainy.
He is very captainy.
Very captainy. We love a captain.
Captains everyone.
He can join the leadership group, but I'm quite captainy on my day as well. I mean, but I'm not very good at football. Look, you know what? You can't. It's really hard. The media were not talking about this lad. He was not on anyone's radar, so it's bullshit to suddenly say this is an important midfield player we're signing. But then again, I'm up for a bit of creativity. It's really about context. This him plus a really exciting one, or him plus two quite interesting ones. I think we go, yeah, that's thorough by Liverpool, and you can't necessarily ordain the order in which we sign players. There is talk of him playing multiple positions, so it might be that he's the quick fix. Where my initial reaction was, and I'm going to modify it throughout this chat, I'm going to be honest with you, because I am thinking on my feet here, because I don't know anything about the footballer to my discredit, is that my initial reaction was, this feels very much like the sort of thing we do on the very last day of the window, like Arthur Melo, but not so. Arthur Melo had a pedigree, he just wasn't fit for purpose. This guy does not have a pedigree in the sense that Arthur Melo does. He hasn't played for all the countries and all the teams. But you know what? Maybe he's just quite good, and maybe he'll do a job.
One of the things he's done, John, first and foremost, is play regular football for the last 3 seasons, which is actually very different to Arthur Melo. And within that, there's some stats which I think are slightly depending on how you look at them, because he's obviously playing for a side that is emphatically in the bottom half of the Bundesliga. So if you play as a holding midfielder for a side in the bottom half of the Bundesliga, without sort of wanting to dampen people's statistical enthusiasm, you are going to make more tackles. You are going to make more clearances. You're going to have to win more headers in your own box, because that's part of playing for a side that's in the bottom half of the Bundesliga. But then Palhinha, albeit the fact that Fulham finished 10th last season, we know that spiritually Fulham are a bottom half Premier League side. He made all the tackles and the interceptions. Ducore does the tackles and the interceptions, plays for a bottom half Premier League side. My point here is that if Liverpool are shopping in a bottom half market, there's pros and cons, and you'll be able to talk yourself into a variety of things. I think staying quite calm around the lads. But the one thing that I like is he's both played a lot of football regularly across the last couple of seasons, but he simultaneously, whilst he's 30, doesn't have anywhere near as many yards or miles on the clock as Fabinho did. He's played 22,000 minutes versus Fabinho's 35,000 minutes, according to Phil Blundell, who is another captain that I would follow into the very jaws of hell alongside Rob on these matters. So, my point about this is that everywhere you look, there's pros and cons, and Liverpool, they're at least making a choice, they're making a decision, they're saying, we'll have this one. I don't think it means they won't have any others, but they're saying we'll have this one.
Yeah, I mean, Rob's right in that it really does. You really do need to look at sort of what happens next to almost judge this signing. Really, I mean, we need to watch him to truly judge it. And like Rob said before, very few of us have seen even a second of this guy play, and so you are in a sort of strange situation where you try and not to just judge it because you think, well, I've never heard of him. Well, there's lots of footballers I don't know huge amounts about because, I'm very Premier League focused in my viewing or Champions League sort of on top of that. So if there's lads who are doing a decent job in a good league, and that's what the Bundesliga is, then I wouldn't necessarily have come across them, and that shouldn't necessarily be seen as a bad thing. The availability is really strong. I've just had a little look there. The last 3 seasons, he plays 33 league games. Now, we need to caveat that with there's only 18 teams in the Bundesliga.
So we can only play 34.
So we can only play 34. So he's missing 1 game a season over the last 3 years. I won't be surprised if at least 2 of those are suspensions because he's playing in a position where, you're going to pick up yellow cards. And so that's really, really strong. And you think about like how we've been hampered so much by player availability and stuff like that. If we're looking for a bit of a steady Eddie to support, say, Thiago, if we want to play him a little bit deeper, then he is the steadiest, in that regard. And people who are saying, really good, things about him in terms of, people who we've spoken to before, Kevin Hatchard, I saw before, who's been on the Anfield Wrap, who watches a huge amount of German footy, commentates on the Bundesliga. He said this will be awesome for LFC, proper warrior and leader, love him. And so you've got to sort of listen to people who sort of have seen him rather than just, your own voice in your head going, he's 30. If he was any good, he'd be playing for someone better now. But it is still a mad one. Like, it is still a mad signing. We do a show called Lost Tapes on the Anfield Wrap. Now, not everyone listens to this subscribes to the Anfield Wrap, and even if you do, you might not come across Lost Tapes there because it's fairly new. But basically, there's 2 people on there. Dan Morgan hosts it, and you talk about 2 games in depth from Liverpool's past. And one of the ones that we did, it's not out yet, but me and Dan did it together. I don't think it's out. When me and Dan did it together, we talked about 1 game, and it's a Spurs game at home, and Kyriakos plays, and we're talking about like what a mad signing Kyriakos was, and it was almost like, I mean, this is a slightly different one. I'd like to think that Liverpool haven't run out of money, but Liverpool suddenly find themselves in a position where they've got 1.5 million. And they're like, who can we get? What's the best possible player we could get for that money? And you end up with him, and you're like, well, he can't be any good if he's 1.5 million. But in a mad way, he was. Like, not in a kind of, you'd want him now, and not in a, he's the kind of player who if he was starting every week, he'd win league titles. But he did a job for us, and he was, wholehearted. And he was a bit of a cult hero. And this guy, I reckon will be sort of better than that. But it is that sort of equivalent, and I don't know. It does feel a bit bad. It's a bit like a few years ago if Bayern Munich are thinking we can't get a 6 anywhere. There's no one about. We just need someone, who maybe is a bit off the radar for top clubs, who we can get to do a good job for a couple of years, and someone in the Bayern, officers have gone, have you heard of Mark Noble? Because if I find Mark Noble out of nowhere, I'd have sort of been into it. And if someone would have got me on a German podcast, I'd be like, you do all right.
Sorry, John. I mean, he could go on to be a cult hero like Kyriakos relative to this era. But his signing, it's hard to position anything other in the moment, other than being an indictment of where we are in this transfer window. Because there is no way on God's earth, rewind to April or May, that Liverpool saw themselves signing a player of this pedigree. There's just no way on God's earth. And I don't want it to sound disrespectful to him. He may go on to be a cult hero. He may be ruefully understand, maybe by by sort of serendipity arriving on a really, really quite good player who may have a quality Liverpool career for 2 or 3 years. But it's not unreasonable for people to have a cynical and aghast take to this. I
think it's perfectly reasonable, Rob, for people to go down that route. I don't think for a second it isn't. I just think there's, it's interesting that, for instance, there's negative comments in there as well. Here's a lad, but there's Jeff Wright who says, Berlin resident here. This is a brilliant movie, as hard as nails. Cheer up, Rob. Other people are pointing that out. But Mark Swain is saying, right, people writing them off already. But there's other people in there as well, by the way, saying, and I think that your point, Rob, I think is absolutely right. Where for me, if you want to have a chat around the management aspect, I think Liverpool thought they were going to do 2 players who were a bit like, certainly one was definitely McAllister in April. One was someone who looks a bit like Szoboszlai. I've always thought that they were in for someone like that. And then I think they thought, realistically, Thiago may well go. And then we'll replace replace Thiago with a young lad who may well be someone who profiles a bit like Lavia, or someone else who's, it could well be Andre, who's at Fluminense or whatever, that we'll bring that sort of footballer in and then we go from there. The truth of this is, and where a lot of this window has ended up looking exceptionally messy, let's be clear, Fabinho would have started at Chelsea if he was still at the club, and there'd be plans that he was starting a number of games throughout the course of the season with a week break in between, but he's chosen to go to Saudi Arabia, and this is where, Rob, I think this is where the club has been backed into a corner and hasn't responded very well to being backed into a corner. But I'll say again, as we've said all the way through, they didn't have to take the Saudi Arabian money.
No, they absolutely did not. They didn't have to fall for the other side of the adage, which says we aren't selling until we've replaced. What worries me about it is whether you argue this equivalent to a last day panic signing like Melo. It feels like, Jesus Christ, let's get one in, because this could end up very, very badly. And bodies are crucial at this stage. That's what worries me about this. Again, look, the next 48 hours, the next 72 hours could change things. But I would have liked to have thought if we were getting 2, they were 2 of a higher pedigree.
But one of my things about this, though, Rob, is back to, my repeated assertion that if they wanted Edson Alvarez, they would have got Edson Alvarez. Like my literal sort of thing that I keep coming back to here is that they're making choices. And I think that that's an important thing to reiterate. They are making choices where they're making choices not to do certain players, and they've ended up doing this lad. But if, for instance, if they'd wanted just about anyone with a bit of pedigree, then they pay the same money that West Ham pay for Edson Alvarez, offer him the same wages, and he comes to Liverpool.
But there are all kinds of parables or metaphors we can't think of offhand. Some of them are crude, which say the person who goes in for everything and comes out with nothing. I mean, Liverpool went in for Lavia as a plan A that they pushed to a plan B because we gambled on getting Caicedo and didn't. So it could be that they went, Edson Alvarez, we can do far better than Edson Alvarez. And before you know, we go, you fuck off, Ed. He's got, but I've got West Ham in my ear. Liverpool might have been tickling him for all we know. And they go, I've got to choose someone. Liverpool, go away. So Liverpool, I think, have been swatting away a few, right? And he may well be one of them. It strikes me that if we are buying a 30-year-old player, I don't care where he's from in the world, actually. I don't even care if he's a World Cup bloody winner. A 30-year-old midfielder is not Liverpool's profile, really. And it does feel desperate. Look, you have to have this thing that you can look stupid and he may on.
I'll give you another shout. I'll give you another shout from the comments, Rob. I'll give you another shout from the comments. Dave Hall says Højbjerg would be better, solid player, reasonable price. And we're all in a WhatsApp group, and I will state this repeatedly, that it is a great philosophical question to ask this, which is, would you take Sander Berge? Now, Sander Berge has now gone to Burnley from Sheffield United. But when people say, well, just take just about anyone, Højbjerg is my new Sander Berge in a different way. Would you rather have Højbjerg? Because he's sort of available at a reasonable price, but Liverpool are choosing to do this instead. And we know that they're in a position to pay 110 million for Caicedo. So we know that money can be made available for a player, but they're doing this lad at this price.
Yeah, that's the worry. I have to say, I made an absolute gaffe, and I don't often delete a tweet. I usually live or die by the stupidity I've posted. But I posted... No, really. But... when I first read the link, and obviously I'll confess I'd never heard of him, I thought I did some very bad math. He's only 20, and he's Japan's captain. He must be good. But then when I heard when I did it, 93 makes him 30, not 20. By utter stupidity. And I had a small wine.
Yeah, exactly. You've been in the pub, Rob. Get off your back.
I've been in the pub, so get off my own back. But I went, 30 is not young. 30, you're going Verratti. You know, you're going 30 years old for a lad playing for a relegation team in a league, and we haven't heard of him. It's not like he's. I don't know. You just. Everyone's going to say this, and we're going round and round again. And to go to the beginning of your question before last, could have just kept Fabinho. I know Fabinho may have dreamed of all those dollars, but we could have told him to wait for one more year.
Rob,
I don't know. Look, this is one of those cases. I'm very pro transfer. God knows people know this. You sign some 22-year-old from Fluminense or wherever. I'm going, yeah, he could be a world beater. What a ceiling he's going to have. But this one, Liverpool, I'm afraid you're guilty till proven innocent, and I can't avoid that sentiment.
Go on, John. It looks like it's being reported that.
Rob, can you see the private chat?
No, I can't. Well,
right, great. Andy's not ruining the game. No, leave it. Guess the how much do you reckon David Ornstein said we're paying for him?
7 million.
19 million euro.
15 million quid.
I mean, you're not getting anyone for 7 million nowadays, are you?
Not this day and age.
I'm encouraged that he must be better than I thought. Then.
Oh, you like the higher fee?
Oh, I like it. Add another 10 million, and I'm all in.
John, how do you feel about it in this context? Because another one, Jan Arga Fjortoft says that he thinks it's a clever move. Someone who, again, watches a lot of German football, one of the best in his position in Bundesliga, keeps the ball well, is aggressive. What do you feel about the move in that context?
I'm definitely like. You do have to listen to all these people who've seen him play. You know, like we've said, we all an hour ago never heard of him. And so you've got to listen to the people. You know, this isn't like, oh, I've watched a bit of him and I don't like him, but I'm happy to be proved wrong. This is zero knowledge, and so I think you sort of in those instances, you do have to, bow to the people who watched him, and a lot of people have. I haven't seen many, and feel free to point me in the direction. Both people on the Zoom and people in the comments of anyone who's saying otherwise. Who's seeing a lot of him, but a lot of the sort of the people who have seen him and the people who are watching him are saying really positive things. And listen, we're in a certain situation that needs sorting as well. And there's people in the comments saying it. Oh, we've had 8 windows. There was one saying, oh, we've had 8 windows to sort this, and this is what we've got to come up with. And listen, I get the frustration, but also like we can't make decisions on the fact that we should have maybe done something better 3 years ago. Like that can't drive you. That can't be like, you have to deal in the here and now. And for better or for worse, you analyze the situation that you're in and what's going to get you into a better one. And sometimes it's long-term planning, and sometimes it's a more short-term situation that's going to get you to a point that's going to allow you to do the long-term planning. So I think the first thing we need to do on September the 1st is appoint a proper sporting director, and we'll decide who that is. This isn't me saying George Schmack is not a proper sporting director as a person. I mean, just as a role, it's not. It's temporary. And so that's the first thing they need to do from the 1st of September. There's not a point on 1st of September to start the process and then get back to a situation where we're much better at all this. But we're not in that place yet. We're not in, we haven't got the perfectly functioning system which allows us to bid for someone tomorrow for 40 million that very quickly looks like an 80 million pound player that we can say that we've been talking to for the past 6 months. We can't just jump there because we all really, really want it. We've got to sort of, bear in mind that the situation they're in, the fact they've been a bit caught out by the changing market, the fact that they've been a bit caught out by, all the things like the sort of Saudi situation. And we're in a point where at the moment we don't have any defensive midfielders. So who do we think we can get in between now and then? I seriously doubt it. It is just this guy. So if you think, look, he's good, he's going to come in and be a good performer for Liverpool, and is going to allow other people to play better, and that's the crucial thing for me. That's the real big thing.
The most important, John, he's just got Liverpool have got loads of brilliant footballers. They just need someone to help the process, and it doesn't even have to be this lad every week. Help the process of enabling those brilliant footballers be brilliant footballers.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying that this guy's going to be brilliant at it. I'm just saying there's a possibility he can do a good job based on what other people are saying. So let's give him a go. Let's obviously keep hoping that there's another one, in there as well. And maybe if you think this guy, is going to be really good, but he's a short term, then it allows you to take a bit more of a risk on one of the others who has got a higher ceiling, but they don't necessarily want playing loads next year. Does that sort of allow you to do that? I don't know. We were 6 o'clock without anyone, and now we've got someone who people are telling me are good, and that is, whether we like it or not, a more positive place.
Dave Phillips, who I like a lot, who's very, very knowledgeable of Japanese football, has tweeted, it's a surprise, a fairly positive surprise, given his age and appreciating fewer minutes than Fabinho. He can't be the only signing. A piano carrier was required, but he plays a bit too, and he's a leader. A lot of people saying he's very happy to put his body on the line, so on and so forth. I think part of it, Rob, is it frees Liverpool up to be able to negotiate a little bit stronger about the next one who comes in. I still think they'll be looking at Andre from Fluminense in January. I think that feels as though it's got real legs. Maybe this window as well, but I think January feels a little bit likelier there. Sorry?
I don't think so. I think that makes it less likely. And more on processing, we're processing things at a rate of minutes and seconds here. The fee's not that low, 19 million euros. There's not one of the things when you analyze a transfer, which you go is, look, you can't always dictate, especially as a fan, definitely as a fan, the order in which you get transfers. But you can judge what part of the budget's being spent, and there's opportunity cost. If you spend 19 million, it's not a huge amount, but it's not nothing either. It feels to me, if it was like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 million, you go, that's an absolute random one. They're just throwing it in as a bonus, and there might be 2 more. And that's how we started this.
I don't think there's going to be 2 more. I think there's going to be 1 more.
Yeah, there is going to be 1 more, and it isn't going to be Andre. Andre is. There might be another one by next summer because you're losing. Actually, maybe you're right because Thiago's clock is ticking. It's the opportunity cost, really. Who's he pushed out? I think we've said for a few weeks now, pre the Caicedo debacle, that it's a young un and one who's ready to play in an experienced way that we would have expected Fabinho to play. And, an Amrabat, who was linked earlier this evening, seems to fit that bill. A Paulinho might fit that bill. God forbid, a Verratti would have fitted that bill. But now we've got a Japanese lad from the nether regions of the Bundesliga. Okay, pressure's on for the next one to be really quite something. I think it just. I want
to pull you a bit on that, Rob. And what I mean by this is, so I think that, for instance, if Fulham do this lad last summer. Or if Fulham were, for instance, to sell us Paulinho and then do this lad, and this lad comes in and is excellent, then there'd be a lot of people going, well, we could just have gone and got him. Andy Brassels tweeted, spoke to Mario Gomez in a round table at the weekend. He couldn't have spoken about his former teammate in more glowing terms, unheralded, but a very smart footballer, real character and resolve. My point here is, like, for instance, he's 18 months older than Paulinho, and he's profiling in a similar sort of way in terms of wins loads and loads of tackles, plays for the bottom half, but for a bottom half team.
Yeah,
Fulham are a bottom half team.
Yeah,
we've just seen Paulinho, haven't we? So we feel
exactly. No, and that's it. And I think that's a part of this. We've seen that footballer do it in the Premier League. But my point is more like, I feel as though there's been a lot of, and I think the age thing is a factor, Rob. But there's been a lot of, we could just, couldn't we have gone and bought Czech Decore last summer? Couldn't we have gone and got Paulinho last summer? Now, as I say, that for me, the biggest sort of is just that he's 30, to be honest. That's my biggest sort of Apart from that, everything else, I'd go, well, it is like doing those players. And Paulinho is not that much younger.
No, but look, there is a chasm in terms of rep between him and Paulinho, because Paulinho.
There wasn't last summer, though.
No, but we've been in the Petri. He's been in the Petri dish that is the Premier League. We have seen what he can do. He's done an audition. Right, this kid of 30 hasn't done his audition yet. I don't want to be overly cynical about it, but it's just, look. There's 2 ways you can look at this. I didn't expect to be going to sleep tonight based on 2 hours ago, thinking Liverpool might have a new signing by midday tomorrow, and they might well do. And you know what? We need bodies, so that's good. And I do trust they're not absolute morons. In fact, I think they're far from absolute morons. The crop at Liverpool, including the manager, who will definitely have signed off on this player, are not idiots, albeit that they signed off on Melo. But having said that, I actually don't think that was a bad signing, apart from just a gamble on his fitness, really. So there's that pro. The cons are obvious, but the biggest con is the opportunity cost. We're just hoping, I suppose, that this just isn't a sticking plaster. Well, it's definitely a sticking plaster, but it's not the main sticking plaster. That's what we're hoping. There's no doubt where Liverpool are. The club are. There's a certain bravery in doing it because they are crystallizing the criticism that is due to them this window. When you buy a sticking plaster player and a 30-year-old player from however much he's an unknown gem, it is a sticking plaster signing, is going to crystallize that criticism upon you. So that for the club to have the bravery to take that on board a week after having done the exact opposite and bid £110 million of near British transfer record fee potentially, there's a certain mad courage in that. So maybe we should focus on that, trust a little bit, but also in equal measure pray to Jesus that there is a proper signing following on.
I think Liverpool will buy one more midfielder, John, after this. But I feel as though if Rob thinks it's a pure 6, I think he's going to be very, very disappointed. I can see a universe where Liverpool, for instance, are then interested in someone like, I keep saying, Kepler Thuram, conceivably that he sort of becomes back in the ballpark off the base of the fact that Liverpool then think, well, for when we want a pure 6, we've got this lad. We've got other players who can play in midfield. We can maybe do something around the shape, which I still don't think is in any way, shape or form mad. And we also want to mold Thuram into the sort of player that we want. I think it opens up that aspect of the conversation as much as it does anything else, the idea of getting a 30-year-old in right now.
No, I think that's fair, but I think when we're talking about we want another 6, it's as much as I guess it does as much mean someone who's comfortable playing there, or someone who the club feel confident who can play there, not necessarily 300 games under his belt sort of in that position. And so you can buy one player and turn him into another. They've done it before. They did it with Gini Wijnaldum, didn't they? They bought him as an attacking midfielder, then moved him deeper, and it didn't take long, did it? A few weeks in pre-season, and then he was looking the part. And so I think it is possible that they've got their eye on someone like a Thuram, and they think like,
or a Gravenberch who's been linked heavily again today, John.
Yeah, Gravenberch came back out of nowhere, like. Jurgen just absolutely loves him and just thinks he's brilliant and doesn't get why Bayern aren't making more of him, and so feels like, so maybe they've had a little bit of encouragement there. So yeah, I think there might be something in that one, but I think there is sort of more to come. I don't feel like with everything that's gone wrong last year and with the situation that we're in, I don't think you can go from bidding 115 million for a player to then spending 60 on 2 and calling it quits. I don't see how you can do that, really. Like, I mean, they've not massively been bothered about, sort of bad press and what people say, and they're fairly sort of, tunnel focused. But, if they're buying a slightly cheaper one, I think, part of the reason for me is that they're using the money elsewhere. And so, if he sounds good, then great. But I'm always sort of, more excited than, if we're not excited by this player, then fine. I understand that, as fans. But I think it is worth, like, being told that, but if being sort of aware that what it does feel like, well, sort of what happens next year. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to count out the whole 115 when it comes to the deals and look to be sort of adding it up and subtracting extra wages and stuff like that. Like, I don't think people are, well, I'm not going to be that mad. Someone
Where's
will.
The Caicedo money, Ken?
Yeah, exactly. But I think like there will be, if there's a real noticeable difference that doesn't need an abacus. Because it's like a massive sort of drop, then I think people you know, will quite reasonably have things to say. So I think they'll do more, and I think they'll be, you know, higher value and, you know, potentially sort of higher impact as well. But you just see what they all do on the pitch, don't you? That's the beauty of it. You know, you can be, you know, hyped. You can have a big fee. You can have a small fee. We've signed all of them. You know, we've signed players from Real Madrid to Scunthorpe, and it's you know, it's tough to predict. You know, we'll do well. So let's see how this fella does.
Indeed. Gutter tomorrow, Rob?
Absolutely, Neil. Absolutely. Very exciting. I reckon we'll be talking about a potential second signing by tomorrow.
Excellent stuff. We've got loads.
Shit, but we'll be talking about a second one.
We've got loads coming. Already, Josh Sexton's got lined up someone who's seen him play very, very recently as well. Other stuff is coming out tonight if you want to subscribe to the Anfield Wrap. So tonight there will be another show out, at least one more. There may well be something out very early tomorrow as well. I know John has most of Germany in his address book, and he's been early.
I'm trying my best. I'll tell you one of my Germans I messaged a couple of days ago about Pavard and Gravenbach, and he rubbished Pavard and just said absolutely nothing about Gravenbach, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then the next day it sort of all comes out, and I was like, was he holding out on me there? Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. We will see where it ends up. We're going to get everyone we can. Someone said get Fjortoft. We're going to see what we do is we get everyone we can. Honestly, I mean, don't tell them, but we're not fussy. Don't let on. But we're not
Especially
fussy.
Big Jan, he played, didn't he?
Yeah, it'd be a pleasure to get Big Jan. It'd be an absolute pleasure.
I see someone's tried the Caicedo as a PR stunt thing. Let's just put one thing to get to bed here. This signing, of however cheap it is not an example of our ownership, and I don't want to protect them for any motivation whatsoever. It's not an example of them trying to do business for Liverpool on the cheap. They had a check written out for 110 million last year. Brighton had accepted it. We're taking it to the bank, and Caicedo and his people wouldn't let it happen. So just knock that on the head that our ownership or the club or Klopp or whoever will not sanction an expensive signing. That's nonsense. And what if you don't like this signing, and I'm not thrilled by the prospect of it, I can't lie. It's not that I think it makes it sound like Liverpool are being cheapskates. It's just that I think they haven't been able to persuade people they should be able to persuade, but that's a different subject.
It is indeed a different subject. I'm quite surprised that Liverpool are doing it off the basis of the fact that I didn't think they'd do this kind of thing anymore. And I'm sort of in favour of it because I was sort of in favour of it then. And I'm sort of in favour of the fact that the thing that keeps coming through is everyone thinks he's a great fella. And I really think that helps in this regard. I really think that helps the idea that he can come in and play a part as Liverpool go. And the other thing that I just think everyone's got to come back to over and over and over again is, my God, Liverpool have got tons of genuinely nailed on brilliant players. Genuinely nailed on brilliant players are things that we've got loads of. We are not short of them. You would always like one more, but we've got them. We need people to be the glue to help pull all this together to an extent. And even then, that doesn't mean that he has to play every game. I'm not going to do stuff around Moneyball or anything like that. I just think that Liverpool feel as though he's a fella who can come in the short term, help do a job. Get that bit of that sort of thing, because we've got loads of players who in the long term can be absolutely brilliant. So loads to come on the Anfield Wrap if you subscribe. You can now subscribe through Patreon, although we're not talking about it. I've talked about it twice today, which I might regret because we don't know if it's going to entirely work yet. But, you know, soft launches are a thing. Rob's done loads of them. In other news, Heaton hasn't had his tea yet, so he's got to crack on and sort that out.
What a surprise.
Sexton sorting out his first interview going into tomorrow. Gibbons will have some. Fuad's working on them as well. Everything you're going to need on the Anfield Wrap, do subscribe through all the different ways and means. And there is the app as well. Andy, can you confirm you are present to end this? Just in the chat there and go from there. Do feel free to sort of drop that in. Yeah, he says marvellous stuff. So everything that you need, the Anfield Wrap, you know where the app is, you know where the anfieldwrap.com/subscribe. I've mentioned the Patreon, which I may well regret, but get stuck in, enjoy every little last bit of it. There's loads and loads to come on Wataru Endo to Liverpool, and I don't disagree with Rob. It wouldn't surprise me if Liverpool move a couple of other pieces across the board relatively quickly after this. I suspect it might be a big 7 days. Thanks to John, thanks to Rob. It's 10 to 10. See you later.